Good morning, guys. I wanted to take you through the PowerPoint on the introduction to the Holocaust, focusing more on the history, the World War I and World War II, and how that World War I led up to the Holocaust because of what happened to Germany during World War I. So if you will just kind of put in your headphones and listen, you have a worksheet that goes with it. So make sure that you're kind of sticking with me and you should be able to answer those questions. Okay. So starting off, World War One was, and the countries involved in the fighting of World War One, they were called the Central Powers, or if you wanted to kind of lump that together into the bad guys, this would be Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. And then there were the Allies, the good guys, that were Britain, France, Russia, and the United States. So if you look at the next slide, Germany was pretty powerful, and it was able to, and kind of Germany was heading up the Central Powers. So as you can see from this map, around World War One, before the Central Powers were defeated, these kind of were the areas that they were able to control. The countries in yellow, and then the red surrounding them. These were the good guys, and they were kind of doomed to fail because they were surrounded and eventually just couldn't go anywhere. So when the reason that the Germans fought in World War One is they had rapidly industrialized. They were putting in a lot of factories, and those factories were making not only the factory owners but the factory workers rich. And they wanted more space to put in these factories. So, in that limited space, as you can see on the map, they wanted to expand into some of these areas so they had a little bit more room. Um, Also, when you have an alliance is kind of like your boy, the person who always has your back. Well, with these countries, Germany, Austria, and Italy, they were all boys. They were all allies, as were here the actual allies, Britain, France, Russia. And they kind of said, if anybody jumps us, if anybody attacks us in any way, everybody else has to come to the rescue. So that happened. Franz Ferdinand, yes, that's the name of a band. They were named after him. He was the Prince of Austria-Hungary, and he was assassinated. So he was purposely killed by a Serbian, and Serbia was the enemy. So everybody, and so Austria-Hungary, remember in our groupings, Austria-Hungary, since they were attacked, all of their friends attacked back against Serbia because Serbia. So then the Allies have to go and defend their friend, and that's how you get a world war. So World War One happened from 1914 to 1918. So that was 4 years. World War Two did not start until 1939. So we had a good number of years in between. And years of peace are good and everything, but it wasn't so great for Germany. So the Treaty of Versailles is the treaty that ended World War One. And in order to end the war, Germany had to kind of agree to these bullets. First, Germany lost all of the land that it acquired before and during the war. So remember, one of the reasons they wanted to fight a war was to expand into other countries so they had more room for their people and their factories. Well, Germany lost all of that. So that didn't make Germany feel too good. Germany also had to pay $33 billion in reparations to the Allies. So essentially, it was apology money for destroying their cities and losing, killing their soldiers. And this is 33 billion by the standards of the early 1900s. So it was even more money by today's standards. So this is a lot of money. In order to pay this, Germans had to cut wages, increase taxes, which was just really just demoralizing. It bummed everybody out, and it made everybody feel bad about being Germany or being German. Another thing that happened is the military of Germany was limited to only 200,000 troops, which seems like a lot, but it's really not. If the U.S. Army is over 1 million personnel plus 1 million on reserve, just another comparison, the population of Rock Hill a few years back was 70,000. So think about if a larger country wanted to attack Germany as punishment or for whatever reason, they had very little troops to defend themselves. So again, this was another humiliation to Germany that was all part of this is how the war ends. This was their punishment for being a part of this. And even worse, Germany had to accept complete blame for the war. It was their fault that so many people died and so much was destroyed. Well, and again, that's not really fair. There were other people. If we go back to our map, or I go back to our groupings, there were more people involved, yet they had to take all the blame. So again, the Treaty of Versailles, with all of these things and this was just really demoralizing for Germany, and it hurt their economy, it hurt their sense of self. So that's how the war ended. Remember, we had 15, 18 years in between World War I and World War II. So it was 18 years of people hating the fact that they were German and being embarrassed. All of the Treaty of Versailles essentially crippled the German economy. Again, remember we talked about they had to cut wages and um, increase taxes. So I mean, they were and all their money was getting shipped off to these countries as an apology. Um, and and because of that, one of the best ways to recover from a bad economy is to actually go back to war. And I know that doesn't make sense, but it kind of does. Think about it. Nobody has any money, nobody has any jobs. Well, if you start factories that make guns and tanks, etc., then you're going to have to put people to work. Well, once you have all these guns and tanks and parachutes, then you need to use them. So now you have to hire soldiers. So now those soldiers have jobs and they have weapons. Well, you can't just have an army standing around. All those people, they all said, let's go to war. Okay. And because they now have jobs, they're feeling pride in their country. And they want to fight and defend their name, even though they've been embarrassed for so many years, or because they've been embarrassed for so many years. So these are the causes of World War II. So now our map turns into this. We've got our Axis powers, the bad guys. They're in the red. We've got our Allied powers. These were the good guys. So this would be, Britain, Russia. Over here, somewhere we have America. Um, Look how different the map looks compared to what we saw before. Okay, Germany and they were kind of closed in on all sides, but now they were able to pretty much take over most if not all of Europe. Okay, so this was a very different war, and they were really only held in check here by Russia. Okay, so definitely it was a stronger Germany. And one of the reasons it was a stronger Germany, see here you can see this is, I believe, Olympic Stadium. And these are all of the Germans doing the Nazi salute to Hitler because of this pride in country. And Hitler, a really bad guy, was actually able to give pride back. One of the ways that he gave pride back to the Germans was to say, we didn't lose World War One because we were bad or because we weren't the best army or fighters. We lost World War One because of the Jews. Hitler gave the German people someone to hate, someone to blame all of their losses and their lack of pride on the Jews. And if everybody hated the Jews together, then we could rise up. If we got rid of the Jews, we can all rise up and be powerful again. Even though that sounds completely crazy, look at the map. It totally worked. So why did Hitler pick the Jews? Well, Germany needed someone to blame. They didn't want to believe that they had lost the war because they weren't the best fighters or they weren't the strongest company. They wanted to have someone to blame. So they did. They blamed the Jews. They said that the Jews at every turn had undermined them, that they were spies, that they're the reasons that Germany didn't win the war. And also historically, if you go back, even into the Bible, the Jews have been blamed for a lot of things that weren't necessarily their fault. In a Christian country like Germany, the Jews were seen as different. Okay, they weren't Christian; they were a different faith. Um, in the Bible, they were blamed for Jesus's death, and people were actually preaching that in the churches. The Jews also lived in small communities with just Jewish people. So everybody kind of looked when they walked past their streets of these little Jewish kind of subdivisions. They thought, well, they look weird. They dress differently. They wear beards and clothes that we don't wear. And a lot of times people assume that what is different must be scary. So those are some of the reasons why the Jews were blamed. Um, Once Hitler got everybody on board with saying that the Jews were at fault, he and the rest of the German government started passing laws to again contain them and then eventually to get rid of them. And by get rid of them, I mean permanently get rid of them, to kill off all the Jews. One of the first things that Hitler did was start what was called the Nuremberg Laws. These limited the Jews' right to travel, to own businesses, to marry, to vote, or to have certain jobs. And think about it, that was really like evil genius on Hitler's part. If you can't travel, then you can't escape him, so he can know where you are and kill you. If you can't own businesses, then you can't have a lot of money. If you can't marry, then you're not going to make any more Jewish people with the babies. If you can't vote, you can't vote him out of power. If you can't have certain jobs, again, you're not going to have any money to fight him or to escape. One of the other things he did is he deported all the foreign Jews back to their native countries. He got rid of all the Jews from other European nations. He got them out of Germany and sent them back home so he could take care of his Jewish problem first. And then, as we saw in the map, he could expand to take care of the rest of Europe's Jewish problem. Um, after these things were accomplished, after these things were accomplished, Hitler started moving the Jews into ghettos. I know a lot of times we think of ghettos as um, we have a particular definition here in America, but really the word ghetto in the dictionary, so the denotation of ghetto, is just a place of one cultural group. It has nothing to do with how much money you make or what it looks like. It's just a place of one cultural group. So he moved all of the Jews out of their houses and out of their apartments and put them in to one part of a town. So every town kind of had their Jewish ghetto. And again, it's kind of like with the Nuremberg laws. He wanted to know where his Jews were so that he could round them up and ship them off to the prisons and then kill them off. And he didn't want anybody being able to escape or to hide and pretend they weren't Jewish. He wanted them all in the same place. In order to help with that, he also singled the Jews out by making them wear the yellow star of David. So they would actually have to wear an armband that was a yellow star. And this was so you wouldn't accidentally be nice to a Jewish person. If you saw a Jewish person who was traveling, um, you would be able to go, hey, you're not supposed to be here, and then they could be arrested. And I know some of you are thinking, well, why did they choose to wear the star? Well, during this time, you had to carry papers, kind of like a driver's license that proved that you were who you were and what your heritage or what your culture was. And so if somebody stopped you for looking because they thought that you looked Jewish and weren't wearing your Star of David, they could stop you and actually search you and look for your papers. And if you didn't have your papers, you were immediately arrested. And some people did try to have fake papers to pretend they weren't, but you also were walking around with fake documents. Means that, again, if it was discovered you had fake documents, you could be arrested and killed. So that was kind of a scary thing, and that's why people participated. Jewish people participated in something that was so bad. Here you can see the armbands the Jews are wearing. I mean, you had to be on your outer clothing. You can also see that this is marked as a Jewish store. And look what happened to the Jewish store. You can see the windows are busted out, again, marked as a Jewish store, because he didn't want Germans to accidentally go into a Jewish store. So this was a pretty big deal. And again, it's a way to make the Jews look even different, to make them look strange and different, so that people thought it was right to punish them. You can see the Jews either being moved into ghettos or moved out. Notice they're caught carrying pretty much all the possessions they could carry in a bag. And think about, what that mean. You're not only kicked out of your home, but you also have to give up um, all the things that were important to you. And think about what was important enough to go in this bag that even a little kid is having to carry a bag. It's probably going to be food, water. Maybe people would try and hide some gold or jewelry to sell, but that became really dangerous because if they found you with it, they could kill you. And notice this guy is carrying a gun, so he is ready to shoot somebody. So the Jews were eventually moved out of the ghettos and into internment camps or concentration camps. Concentration meaning it was concentrated full of Jewish people and other undesirables. So the death toll for the Jews, over 6 million Jews were killed by the Nazis, which is just a horrifying number. In addition to that 6 million, you have another 5 million of other undesirables, people that were not the perfect race, the Aryan race that Hitler was trying to create. Those other undesirables were gypsies, is a kind of a migrant group in Europe. Homosexuals, people of color, the disabled that could be mentally or physically, like you were, missing an arm or something, you were considered undesirable, and they would ship you off to the concentration camp and kill you. So think about like in our own classroom. I know that my family actually comes from Jewish heritage. I know that I have friends that fall into some of these undesirable categories. So think about all the people